This morning, we are speaking to the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Professor David Francis, on Sierra Leone going back to the United Nations Security Council after 50 years. And he's with us in the studio. Good morning, Professor, and welcome.
Good morning.
Let's start off. Why are we going back after 50 years?
Sierra Leone is a small country. If you are a small country, you have to find an opportunity to be on the global stage. And when you are on the global stage, you transform your size into an important influence on the global stage. That is why we are going back to the UN Security Council after 50 years. But what is more, the foreign policy of Sierra Leone, especially under the new direction government of His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio, has focused on one key aspect: to rebrand Sierra Leone and to put Sierra Leone firmly on the global stage as a country of standing, as a country that is respected internationally, as a country that can punch above its weight, as a country that can influence global peace and security. So our foreign policy has been very clear on promoting peaceful coexistence and international cooperation with member states. Through that framework, we can then promote and maintain international peace and security. So this has been the foreign policy focus of Sierra Leone. So the president said, well, look, on coming into power in April 2018, he said we have to rebrand Sierra Leone. Why is that so? Because at the time of his assumption of office, Sierra Leone was presented as one of the most corrupt countries in the world, with a battered international image. So the president said, look, you cannot attract investment into the country. You cannot play a meaningful role on the global stage if you do not rebrand the image of the country. So the president said, one sure way of doing that is to put Sierra Leone onto the global stage by being member of international organizations. So Sierra Leone going back to the UN Security Council after 50 years is a very clear demonstration. And let me tell you that as of today, we are confident that Sierra Leone is on the global stage after 50 years. Firstly, Sierra Leone today is the African Union coordinator for the reform of the Security Council. Today, Sierra Leone and the president of Sierra Leone is the chairperson of the African Union, African Peer Review Mechanism. And today, Sierra Leone and the president of Sierra Leone is the co-chair of the UN Transforming Education Summit, together with the UN Secretary General. So because of all of this, the president has said we need to go back to the Security Council. So in the past 2 years, that's what I've been doing to promote the president's agenda, to go and put Sierra Leone on the global stage, so that when we are there, we can exercise influence, we can attract maximum benefits for Sierra Leone and the people of Sierra Leone, so that when you travel with your Sierra Leonean passport, you'll be respected.
Now, in the past 2 years, as you rightly stated, you've also had discussions and meetings with other governments for them to support, because it's going to boil down to the votes we're going to have as a nation. How confident are you that we'll have all the required votes?
We're 100% confident. In the first place, I want to publicly announce that the vote for the United Nations Security Council in the non-permanent category for which Sierra Leone is going is scheduled for the 6th of June. So that's in 2 weeks' time. I will be heading to New York next week. We are confident because, firstly, Sierra Leone is the African Union endorsed candidate. So we are not in competition at all in the continent of Africa. We are not in competition. It's called the clean slate candidate. We represent West Africa. And by the way, we went against Nigeria, big brother Nigeria, and Sierra Leone was able to influence and persuade Nigeria to stand down on behalf of Sierra Leone. So we are a clean slate candidate. When you are a clean slate candidate, you go in The whole of the continent is supporting you. But we have not only stopped at that level. We have said we do not only need to secure the 2/3 vote, that is 97 votes. We have campaigned all the regional groupings. For example, I'm just coming back from Brazil and last week from China. In Brazil, given the importance of Brazil and the CARICOM group, 10 member states, I was able to convince them. And for the first time, all heads of states of the CARICOM group unanimously agreed that they will vote for Sierra Leone. The same for engaging last week with the foreign minister of the People's Republic of China to secure the vote of ASEAN as well. These are powerful groups as well. So I think we have done enough. The president has been leading the campaign himself. As foreign minister, I have been given that responsibility to promote the campaign, to make sure that, as you rightly stated, it's election, to make sure that the votes count. So that's why, even though we've done all the shot to diplomacy, the president has done his bit, I have done my bit, together with our permanent representative, our ambassador in New York, and all our 24 missions, they have also promoted the campaign. I've said, in addition to that, I have to go, as the normal practice, to New York. I'm going to be there for the next week until the election to demonstrate highest political support. I'll be meeting with all the 192 ambassadors to convince them that Sierra Leone must be on that ballot. So despite the fact that we are a clean slate candidate, we are not in competition with anyone within Africa, despite the fact that we have done the campaign and received positive responses in terms of reciprocal agreements, but of course, as with election, you have to be there. So I have to be there to ensure that they actually put Sierra Leone on that ballot. But let me make one point clear, probably for the general public. You know, the United Nations Security Council has two categories. One is the permanent category, they call them P5. And the P5 members have the veto. That means they can vote against any. The P5 include the United States, United Kingdom, Russia, China, France. The non-permanent members include 10. They call them the P10. They are elected. The last time the UN was reformed was in 1963-65, increasing from 11 members to 15 members. So Sierra Leone is going to be part of that category of the non-permanent seats.
Now, out of the 10 non-permanent members in the non-permanent category, how does the term run? Because 5 of the non-permanent are their term is going to expire this year, and another 5 will expire in 2024. When we get the 2024 to 2025 period, is it renewable?
Renewable, yes or no, but we are going there for 2 terms.
2 terms.
So our focus first is on the 2 terms.
How long is the period? How long is the term?
2 terms, 2 years.
2 years.
2024, 2025.
Okay.
And within that time, Sierra Leone is going to play a significant role in world politics.
How will Sierra Leone contribute to the United Nations Security Council?
Firstly, Sierra Leone as a small state is given the opportunity, in line with the United Nations mandate itself, to give smaller states the opportunity to play important role on the global stage for and on behalf of the United Nations. So firstly, Sierra Leone, as part of the UN Security Council, is going to influence, as part of our own 7 strategic priorities. We have 7, one of which we want to share our experience on peace building and peacekeeping. Make no mistake, without the United Nations, probably Sierra Leone will be still struggling, because we know the role of what the United Nations did in terms of deploying the largest peacekeeping, but also peace support operation. So we want to share our experience with the rest of the world. That Sierra Leone, clearly, according to the German foreign minister, is a successful case of post-war peace building and state reconstruction. We want to share that experience with Afghanistan, with Iraq, with Yemen, with now Sudan, with Arab Israeli. We have a lot to share. And as I always say, you know, in this business of global peace and security, you don't make peace with your friends. you make peace with your enemies. And this is the experience that Sierra Leone will bring to the world stage. So that's what. We have 7 strategic priorities. Let me just talk briefly about what we are bringing to the United Nations Security Council. We'll also want to bring the focus on peace, human rights, and accountability. You know, we have gone through a very difficult past of wars and Ebola, but today Sierra Leone is a peaceful, secure, and stable country. A lot of countries have seen Sierra Leone as a successful case and they want to learn from our experience. We've also promoted human rights and democratic governance and accountability. We are on the verge on the 24th of June to organize our 5th peaceful, inclusive, transparent, accountable election on the 24th of June. We've had 4 successful democratic elections since the end of the war, including 2 transfer of power in 2007 and 2018 from incumbent government to an opposition, something that is rare and chaotic in Africa. We have managed that. So we are going to show also that it can be done. That's a huge experience. We also have the experience of the role of women and youth in peace building and post-war reconstruction. We want to go and share with the rest of the world to what extent women can play a leadership role. The government, under the leadership of President Julius Maada Bio, we've just enacted the Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Act 2022, translating into 30% elective role for women, 30% appointive role for women, and at the 30% access to private capital. You know what is interesting about that? The UK Foreign Secretary visited us recently, I think in March. And he used that opportunity to launch the United Kingdom Global Strategy on Women and Girls in Sierra Leone. And I casually said to my colleague, the Foreign Secretary, at least you can learn something from Sierra Leone. We are not launching global strategy. We have already a legislative act on the empowerment of women. So Sierra Leone is leading. So within this framework, let me just wrap up on the 2 issues. We also have experience on small arms. You know the devastation caused by small arms and light weapons. So Sierra Leone has been leading on that one. The universal mobilization for more and more states to ratify the Convention on Small Arms and Light Weapons. In fact, it was during the presidency in 2021, in September, that Sierra Leone did something that is unique when it comes to ratification of Small Arms and Light Weapons Convention. It was during the presidency of Sierra Leone that the Gambia, the only member state that has not ratified that convention, we were able to use that opportunity to get and convince the Republic of the Gambia to ratify. So that is very important. And one final aspect in terms of our 7 strategic priorities is that Sierra Leone, as I said, is the African Union coordinator for the reform of the Security Council, the C10. So we are going to the United Nations Security Council to promote the reform of the Security Council. I'm sure you are aware that historically this United Nations Security Council has been for those who have power. It's not for small countries. Africa has been historically neglected from the Security Council. Only 5 permanent members with veto. They can vote against anything. And they include the United States, United Kingdom, China, Russia, France. There was a point, issues dealing with Africa was, the pen holder was France. So that historic injustice has been there. So the African Union has mandated Sierra Leone, this small, beautiful, aspiring, dynamic country, to lead that continental mandate to reform the Security Council. Do you know what that means? Reforming the Security Council. The last time the UN Security Council was reformed was in 1963-65, increasing the membership from 11 to 15. But today, Sierra Leone has been given that continual responsibility to go into the Security Council to promote the common African position. The common African position is very clear. It says we want 2 permanent seats for Africa with all the rights and privileges, including the veto, if it's maintained. That is huge. So for the first time, Sierra Leone, this small country on the west coast of Africa, is leading and promoting Africa to reform the Security Council, so that when Africa gets to the UN Security Council with rights and veto, it will transform the country as a significant player. So we have a very clear idea of what we are going to do in the Security Council. Okay. It is not only for the benefit of Sierra Leone and Sierra Leoneans, it is for the benefit of Africa. That is what we call the Pan-African solidarity.
Okay, so you've already mentioned the 7 strategic priorities within which Sierra Leone will contribute to the United Nations Security Council. Now, how will Sierra Leone benefit from attaining that position as one of the non-permanent members?
Well, as you know, foreign policy is for domestic consumption. It's for the ordinary people of Sierra Leone. Yes, it's important to talk about all these big strategic priorities, but the ordinary Sierra Leonean will want to know, what's in it for me? What's the benefit? Huge benefits for Sierra Leone. Firstly, visibility, international visibility. I started off by saying that in 2018, Sierra Leone was ranked as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Sierra Leone did not have respect at all. Those who travel with Sierra Leonean passport know what I'm talking about. Today, Sierra Leone is respected. So when you are in the UN Security Council, you have international visibility. The whole world, their eyes are on you. They see you. So you have influence, you have power, you have gravitas. You can influence global peace and security issues. It means that you have respect. You are a country of standing that other countries can listen to. Today, our president, Dr. Julius Maada Bio, his wisdom and his experience is highly sought after. There's no discussion today on global education without reference to Sierra Leone, without reference to President Bio, because he is the co-chair, together with the United Nations Secretary General, for the UNESCO Transforming Education. Today, there is no discussion around global peace and security, especially when it comes to the consolidation of democracy, without reference to Sierra Leone. So that international visibility is important. And secondly, this small country, Sierra Leone, is going to be transformed into a big player, because we will be in that room together with America, with France, with United Kingdom, with biggest China, with Russia, with all the other men. We will be in that room to make decisions on all issues relating to international peace and security. Ukraine, we will be there. South Sudan, we will be there. Afghanistan, we will be there. Iraq, we will be there. Arab Israeli, we will be there. In that room where the decisions, the global decisions on peace and security are made. That will transform Sierra Leone into a power broker, into a peace broker. And what that will mean also for Sierra Leone. Thirdly, during that time, Sierra Leone will also be the pen holder. When you are the pen holder, you determine what is on the agenda of the Security Council on behalf of Africa. So Sierra Leone will be courted by everyone. Sierra Leone also will have the opportunity to be the president of the United Nations Security Council. You know what that means? Everybody will want to make Sierra Leone their friend. All the big powers, all the big players. Because when you are president of the United Nations Security Council, people want to influence things in their own favor. When it comes to sanctions on Russia, sanctions on China, sanctions on Zimbabwe, everybody will want to come to Sierra Leone because they want those sanctions removed. So because of that, Sierra Leone as pen holder, Sierra Leone as president of the Security Council, will transform Sierra Leone into a major and influential player in global peace and security. And let me tell you one thing. You know, when we were in the Security Council last in 1971, during the presidency of President Shaka Stevens, Prime Minister Shaka Stevens, and then the Foreign Minister Solomon Pratt. It was during that time when Sierra Leone was the president of the UN Security Council that we added on the agenda and the vote for the government of the People's Republic of China to come back to the Security Council to take their legitimate role. Since that time, China has always been grateful to Sierra Leone. The National Stadium, UN Security Council. UU Building, UN Security Council. And more recently, the Foreign Service Academy, benefits of the UN Security Council. 50 years ago. So we are coming back. One additional benefit, I have to say, is that from all the experience of all those African member states that have been on the Security Council, it has provided huge financial, economic, and development benefits for the country. So Sierra Leone will be positioned to secure financial and development benefits from the IMF, from World Bank, and international financial institutions. But also because it will create the image that Sierra Leone is a peaceful country, it's a stable country. It will transform Sierra Leone into the #1 investors' destination of choice. And when investors come, what do? They create industries, factories. They create jobs for people. So ordinary Sierra Leoneans will benefit from us going back to the Security Council. And finally, the reputation of Sierra Leone will be intact on the global stage as a credible, influential country of standing. It is important. Make no mistake. AYV, you always want to look good among your competitors, not only in Sierra Leone, but in Africa. That's the image you have created for yourself. Just like states, we want to look good, credible, sincere, transparent country with gravitas. Take the case of Rwanda, small country, but it's able to punch above its weight. Today, Sierra Leone is a very strong, credible country. I always say Sierra Leone, yes, we are small in terms of our population and size. But today, Sierra Leone, we are a big country. And we should aspire for that bigness and that greatness to influence global peace and security issues.
All right, Professor, now looking to the African context and the West African context, the importance of Sierra Leone being part of the Security Council, even save it in the non-permanent category. We have key concerns in Africa now, geopolitically, and even in West Africa, with the issue of terrorism, the rise of coup d'etats, specifically in West Africa is the concern, and how we can reduce migration from West Africa into Europe. How would Sierra Leone ensure that these issues, that are African issues, that are West African issues, are tackled in the Security Council?
Well, again, thank you very much. Very impressive question. Because one of our strategic priorities actually going to the UN Security Council is dealing with what you call the new threats, climate change, new threats dealing with unconstitutional change of government, terrorism. We have the experience of one of the countries that is at risk for the impact of climate change. So we have said when we go there, we are going to promote issues around climate resilience and climate adaptation for small coastal countries like Sierra Leone. Also the issue of terrorism, especially in the area of the Sahel region. We are very mindful of that. Yes, it may be miles off in the Sahel region, but we are seeing some of the effects in some of the neighboring countries, in Burkina Faso, etc., and others. So we are not going to wait. The president has constantly said, President Bio has constantly said, let us try to address these issues where they are before they migrate into coastal countries. So we are going to leverage our presence in the Security Council to do two things: build networks around similar countries that have similar concerns, and then amplify our voice. Collectively, we can then move issues on addressing climate change, the new threats around unconstitutional change, around terrorism. And when it comes to unconstitutional change, this is where the role of President Bio has received continental applause. I am not saying it because he is my president, but I've seen heads of state constantly referring to him, and also Western partners coming to him to talk to him about, because he is the only president that I know in Africa that has been former head of state, organized democratic election, handed over power to civilian democratic elected government. So he has that experience. 20 years on, he is back. So in Mali, in Guinea, in Burkina Faso, he has engaged all of this. He has been to Guinea himself and reciprocal visit from the Guinean head of state. He has been to Mali to provide support for the ECOWAS transition agenda. He has sent me a special envoy to Burkina Faso to engage with the military leadership to make sure that they stick to the ECOWAS transition agenda. So Sierra Leone is providing that support, and I'm very pleased that you raised this, but we are going to use our voice in the Security Council to talk to the other global powers to say, don't forget West Africa. Because it's very easy now. No, everybody is preoccupied with Ukraine for obvious reasons. But we know the unconstitutional change of government is emerging as a clear and present danger for the peace and security and stability of the region. Terrorism in those parts of West Africa is still a clear and present danger for the coastal states. The issue of climate change, we are not going to leave it to anybody. We have to be our own mouthpiece. So when we get there, and as I said, we leverage, network, similar states, small states, bigger states that have similar concern, but also amplify our voice. We add to the collective so that together we can scream, we can shout about the important issues that are affecting West Africa. In this business, if you don't talk for yourself, nobody's going to talk for you.
Speaking of, if you don't talk for yourself, there are also key concerns with migration, human trafficking, and then as part of the new threat also piracy in the Gulf of Guinea.
Yes, yeah.
If you take a look at from the Nigeria basin down to Sierra Leone, there's issue of piracy, illegal fishing, and to a very large extent, countries within the Gulf of Guinea do not have the capability, be it the military or marine capability, to ensure that piracy is no more. How is our position, being that we are suffering from that directly? Human trafficking, recently the president spoke on that, and also the illegal fishing happening in our waters. Will our position be that important to influence and see these things change in 2 years to come?
Well, that is the purpose of going to the UN Security Council. You use your influence to galvanize and mobilize support, what we call the coalition of willing states, to respond to all the issues of migration. We cannot solve it on our own. And as you rightly said, the issue of piracy on the Gulf of Guinea coast, the issue of unreported illegal fishing in that area, we cannot do it on our own. As I speak as foreign minister, I am aware of emerging initiatives for maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea. I would not want to talk more in detail. They are emerging from external partners who mean well for the region, but also from the West African sub-region and key partners and key leaders, pivotal states within the region itself. So we are aware of that. When we get to the Security Council, now is the time to mobilize that consensus, mobilize and leverage that opportunity to focus on what can we do about migration? What can we do about piracy in the Gulf of Guinea? What can we do about illegal fishing in that region? Together, as a small state, On our own, we cannot address those problems on our own. But together, we can leverage and amplify our voice and build a global, continental consensus to address the problems that affect us. You and I, on a daily basis, we see it every day. But we do not have the resources. We do not have the means. So we need to work. That's what global partnership is all about. So that's why in Sierra Leone, our mantra for going to the Security Council says partnership, multilateralism, and representative approach to maintain global peace and security. We know what multilateralism has done for Sierra Leone in terms of UN peacekeeping. We know what partnership has done to build peace and end the war in Sierra Leone. We know what it means to represent in terms of transforming issues. So that's what we are bringing. And I'm very pleased that, a lot of people see the Security Council as just peace and security. No, there are diverse issues dealing with climate change, development issues, etc. But of course, the mandate of the Security Council is on peace and security. The UN General Assembly deals with the broader issues of development. But when we are there, we will be respected.
Now let's talk about the economies the economies of the country. With this global economic crisis, especially in Sierra Leone as well, where we're having the dollar rate escalating and a lot of economic concerns. Now, with the position at the UN Security Council, how will Sierra Leone help influence the global economy?
Thank you. Again, a very impressive question. There are two parts to it. Firstly, it's common knowledge that what is happening today in Sierra Leone in terms of the inflation rate is not unique to Sierra Leone. All countries in the world are suffering from it. I'm just coming from China. they have the same problem. I was recently in Brazil. This is the same problem. Recently in the United Kingdom, they are facing the same global crisis, coming from COVID and then exacerbated by the Ukraine crisis, around fuel crisis, around food crisis, around the financial crisis. So this is global. But in Sierra Leone, we have done well. We have done well. We have managed the situation. Do you know what it means when you're faced with global crisis? You do not have... People's salaries are paid on a monthly basis. Even at the height of COVID, salaries were paid. We tend to forget that. We still have essential commodities on the market. When you go, people have essential commodities. The staple food, rice, is there. And of course, as foreign minister with EcoRice, we are contributing to that mandate as well. Fuel is constantly available despite the challenges. So I want to put that to rest, that this is not unique to Sierra Leone. All countries in the world are faced with the same global crisis. But we are going to the Security Council to benefit Sierra Leone. So when we are there, we are going to look for opportunities. As I said, one of the benefits of going to the Security Council is to leverage financial, economic, and development opportunities for Sierra Leone and for Sierra Leoneans. So we are very confident that when we go, we will increase our share of grants, we'll increase our share of international financial institutions' contribution to Sierra Leone's development, with those access to global capital, but also transforming Sierra Leone as a peaceful, stable country. We will attract more and more investors to come to the country, to create jobs, establish factories, etc., etc. So the ordinary Sierra Leoneans will benefit. So we are going to the Security Council to look out for Sierra Leoneans. So whatever we can do to support the global economy. Because when we have a stable country, when we have a peaceful country, then we can export more. I'm just coming back from China. The view of the Chinese government is to transform Sierra Leone's mining sector, especially in the iron ore sector, to make Sierra Leone the 6th largest exporter of ore and steel to China. That is huge, 6th largest exporter. So that means the Chinese company that is operating here will not be exporting just the raw materials. They will be actually exporting steel to China. So we are going to use all the opportunities going back to the United Nations Security Council after 50 years to leverage benefits for Sierra Leone. And of course, we have no control over some aspects of the dollar inflation, but we will do our best to make sure that the impact in country is minimized. And we have a very good economic system under the leadership of the president to make sure that we are addressing the core economic concerns that affect the daily lives of the people.
All right. Now, as we close with you, Professor, to the ordinary Sierra Leonean, and this may seem not so important as to why do we need to go to the UN Security Council when we've been doing fairly well or fairly okay. And to the ordinary man who will be still bent on understanding the importance and then looking at all what we have and what we've been enjoying and the benefits, and again, the much of rally we need around countries like China, like Brazil to vote for us, and the assurance they've given. And again, if we are now elected into that position, is Sierra Leone not going to be swayed to follow emerging trends? Say, for example, the concern of the Ukraine war. How would that not be a priority over what we have as an African continent, or what we have in the Sierra Leonean context when it comes to security issues? For example, Yenga, how will we ensure we are secure in that vein, and all these new emerging threats? How, as a small nation, as you rightly said, we want to punch above our weight. But what if the weight is way above us? How are we going to ensure that we still send the punch no matter what?
The weight will never be way above us when it comes to leadership in Sierra Leone. It's all about leadership. You know, in foreign affairs and diplomacy, there's one cardinal principle. You look out for your national interests. You look out for your national interests. All the countries in the world, big or small, they always look out for themselves. So when we go to the Security Council, we will look out for ourselves. We maximize the benefits that will benefit Sierra Leoneans to respond to the new threats you have talked about. Creating jobs, terrorism, climate change, the issue of migration. We will look out for ourselves. Be rest assured, we will not be swayed. We are faced with a very difficult global crisis today, especially because of the Ukraine war. But as foreign minister, under the direction of the chief diplomat, His Excellency the President, we have managed to navigate the very difficult and sensitive issues. We are a small country. We cannot afford to be not on friendly terms with all countries of the world. The Ukraine crisis is going to end. We did not create it. But the impact is felt today. We will work with our traditional partners, our historic partners, the United Kingdom, the United States, the European Union, China, Russia. We will work with them. But in addition, we will look out for new friends as well. In this business, look out for yourself. That is the only way you can survive in an international system where the small are not given the opportunity. So if you are given the opportunity to go to the Security Council, look out for your strategic national interest. And our national interest is about what? Peace, security, stability, democratic consolidation. It's about what? It's about inclusive development for the ordinary people of the country. It's about what? It's about maintaining friendly relations with ECOWAS member states, with continental member states, and global United Nations system to promote global peace and security. It's about what? It's about maintaining international principles, the principles of international society. Sovereign equality, big or small, we see ourselves as equal. Respect for territorial integrity, non-intervention in domestic affairs of member states. And finally, it's about catering for the interests of Sierra Leoneans. wherever they are in the world. These are our strategic national interests: peace, security, democracy, rule of law, inclusive development, inclusive protection of Sierra Leoneans everywhere. With that, going to the Security Council, we will change and transform this country. And by the way, it's 50 years since we were in the Security Council. So this is a defining moment, and it has only happened under the leadership of His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
You also have other engagement
Yes, indeed.
This morning to attend, but he is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Professor David Francis, and he was speaking to us on Sierra Leone's preparedness to go into the Security Council, and we wish you all the best as you head for New York next week.
Thank you.
And we want to say from the Africa Young Voices Media Empire, we told the line in your drive to call on all the other countries who should support in voting Sierra Leone into the Security Council. Thank you very much.
We need that support. And be rest assured, I'll be coming back to engage with Wake Up Sierra Leone when we are voted in. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.